Hi, my name is Mark. Sorry if this video seems a little rushed. This is actually the second time I'm recording this video. I was already going to edit it, but then I noticed some serious audio issues. So yeah, I'm re-recording this video and I'm really pretty late on it and pretty late to edit it. But whatever, I guess. Technical difficulties, right? Getting back to the video, those who follow my channel know that I usually tell you to leave comments on my videos. Whether it's to leave your opinion or suggestion for videos or something, and I usually try to pick those comments up. So in an effort to separate that from my regular content and to incentivize you guys to leave more comments, I'm going to start a new series. I'm thinking about calling it You Ask, I Teach, kind of like YAIT. I don't know, it sounds kind of odd, but what it comes down to is sometimes I'll do a video where I just talk about something I want to talk about, or something I think you guys will enjoy, and other times I'll pick some of your comments. If you have a better name suggestion for this series, or you have something you want me to talk about, leave it in the comment section below. Just like that guy who does stuff, who recently commented on a couple of my videos, asked, "Hey, I was wondering if you could do a video on common blues chord progressions and how to make them sound more unique. I'm kind of getting tired of the straight 12-bar blues. On a side note, I love your videos." He left this comment on my video where I share one lick that has every outside note possible. Well, first, thank you very much, brother, I appreciate it. Not only that you love my videos, but that you left a comment. If you want to get a shout out just like that guy who does stuff, or want to have something answered, again, please leave it in the comment section below. Getting back to your question, I can kind of agree. Whichever genre you like, whether it's metal, rock, blues, or even jazz, there are always a couple of chord progressions that are standards, or even standard songs, and even in many of these, standard chord positions and tunings. And once more, if you watch my channel, you probably know that this is one of the things that I like to focus on. Sure, learn new things as often as you can, but you should also try to build on what you know as much as you can. But since there are so many ways to kind of revamp your 12-bar blues progressions, in fact so many that I would keep talking for hours about this, instead of sharing with you guys all of the ones I can think about, I'll show you the ones that I use the most. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You probably know that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channels' videos may really not show up in our subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still really may not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my content or the content of your favorite creators, you really gotta subscribe and turn on all the notifications. And since that may or may not work, I highly suggest you follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally whatever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post there about my videos. Links for the usual suspects like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, even though I don't really post much on Twitter, will be below. But in general, at Mark Henrique's Guitar. And since you're down there, please consider leaving a like. And perhaps checking out some of my other videos after this one. If you're into this sort of stuff of revamping chord progressions and more of those chordal ideas, I have some other videos, some that are a little bit more basic, like some of those chord progressions that you've definitely heard before, but you never really took the time to learn or understand. And also some more advanced stuff like unusual chord substitutions and chord progressions. And or if you're trying to get into this sort of stuff and you want to learn some more chords other than those open chords, how about learning this really bad pop song, but that has all the most common jazz chord shapes? All of those videos will be on the card section right there, on the description below, and on the annotations of the end screen, so please, stay tuned. So yeah, I guess now we can get straight into it. Before we get into the playing part, I just want to say that I'm tuned a half step down. But you don't really need to. All you need to do is just move whatever I'm playing a fret down. I've been trying to get my chops back after that little holiday break, I guess, and I'm picking up this guitar more often because it has a little bit of a heavier string gauge, and also the Strat is a pretty good blues axe, don't you think? So yeah, sorry for the inconvenience, but it's not really much of one. Getting to the video itself, if you're a fan of the blues, you've probably either heard some of those shuffles like... or maybe some more of those chordal approaches like... And in this video, because I think it's much easier, we'll be focusing on the latter one. And one thing that's really cool about the 12-bar blues is that in general, all the three chords are the same type of chord. They're usually, unless there are some alterations, like if you're playing a minor blues, or you're adding some extra stuff to spice it out. If you're playing just a standard blues, you'll generally have straight dominant 7th chords. I'm kind of in A flat or G sharp. I'll talk about it as if I'm in A, I think it will make it easier. And again, you only have three chords. You have an A dominant 7th, you have a D dominant 7th, and an E dominant 7. This is the more basic part, probably many of you already know this, but that's pretty much it. Again, you start on A7th. Before we go through with the explanations, I just want to say that if you're going to use these substitutions or modifications to songs you're going to play with a band or a singer or along a backing track or something, you really should rehearse these things with the other musicians you're going to play with, or play these things with the backing track first before you play it to people or record it, because even though these changes are harmless and they work theoretically, since you're not the only one playing, some of them may conflict with the singer's melody or conflicting with the part of the bass player, or you'll even apply some rhythms that don't really align with the rhythms of your drummer. So if you want to use these in a gig or something, I highly suggest you don't just throw them out there the first time you can without really having rehearsed them first. So yeah, one thing that I like to do, and that people actually do quite often, is to slide to the chord you're going to from a fret below. If we were playing our 12 bar blues, where you kind of slide it in the pickup note, no kind of in the end of 4 like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And even though I kind of do that in faster tempos like something I do even more often and that I kind of enjoy a little bit more, I would advise you play that chord before on the 4th beat. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So that you get an idea, I'll play it first just before I play my regular chords, and then after it, play that chord before on the 4th beat. May not seem like much of a difference, but when you think about it, by playing the same chord shape as you're going to play next, just that little bit earlier, it kind of works the listener's ears into the next chord and adds a little bit of extra tension that I think sounds really nice. Again, as mentioned before, play this anticipation of the chord a little earlier than you should, check with your drummer to see if that's okay. Another thing I like to do quite a lot is to do the tritone substitution thing. If you don't know what a tritone substitution is, again I have some other videos where I kind of talk about it more in depth, again they're in the card section right there, but explaining it very briefly and poorly. If you look at your A dominant 7th chord, you have A, the root, you have G, the dominant 7th, and you have C sharp, the 3rd, right? If you take the A and leave just the tritone, and we replace the A with a D sharp or an E flat, we get another dominant 7th chord. But this time, not only is the root an E flat instead of an A, but the G is now the 3rd and not the 7th. And the C sharp is now the 7th and not the 3rd. But even though these notes are now having a different function by having an E flat on the bass instead of an A on the bass, these chords are pretty similar. Again, when we're playing an A dominant 7th, if we just play these 3 notes, and when we're playing the E flat dominant 7th, if we just play these 3 notes and we don't add any more notes, these chords are very, very similar. So if the melody has any of these notes like the G or the C sharp, we could replace our A dominant 7th with an E flat dominant 7th. And before I show an example, don't just brush off what I said. Before you try to substitute these chords, first try to hear if they work out. If we just substitute our A dominant 7th with an E flat dominant 7th, this is what we'll get. And this is exactly what I was telling you before. It works theoretically, and whether it sounds good or not, it's debatable. But again, just because you can substitute your A dominant 7 with an A flat dominant 7 doesn't really mean that you need to substitute it each and every single time. For instance, we could do it like this, where you keep playing your A dominant 7 first, but then the second time when you come from that D to your A dominant 7, you can go from your D to an E flat, kind of like this. Kind of works by going to that E flat dominant 7 instead of going to the A after the D. Since the chord you're going to next is E, you kind of have this chromatic walkup. It kind of takes a while and it has a little bit of tension, but that may be something you want to achieve. Or you can just substitute it briefly. For instance, we mentioned that we can slide to the chord we're going to from a fret below, like. But we can also slide to the chord we're going to from a fret up. If we're going from A to D and we slide from a chord above, remember this chord? It's a substitution for that A dominant 7th chord. It's pretty much the same thing as having. But it adds a little bit of extra tension. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the really cool thing about blues chord progressions is that each and every single chord is a dominant 7th chord. So you can apply this tritone substitution thing not only to your A dominant 7th chord, the root of the song, but you can apply it to some of the other chords. For instance, say that we want to do a substitution on the D7th chord. Here's our tritone substitution. And again, we can do. And again, it works theoretically. Or you can just substitute the D7 when you're trying to go back to the A. Like. And if you've noticed, the tritone substitution of D7th becomes that G sharp 7th, which is the chord that will slide from below to get to the A dominant 7th. So as you can see, things really do connect. It's not just me spitting out gibberish. Unlike some of these tritone substitution things that we did right now, that sometimes sounded good and other times needed to be arranged in a better way, this sliding from a fret below to your chord kind of works really well, right? And you thought it sounded good before I told you that it could be interpreted as some sort of a tritone substitution thing, right? This goes to show that theory is good, kids. Learn why the things you think sound good. Before we get going, we also have an E dominant 7th, right, in the turnaround. We could also substitute that E dominant 7th chord. Again, think about the tritone. And you could also do a tritone substitution like that, like, I don't know. Or even. Again, there are tons of options, you can try these for yourself. Another thing we can try and do is, if we take the A dominant 7th again, we looked at the notes of that A dominant 7th, right? A, G, and C sharp, right? If we take the A from the bottom of the chord and we put a C sharp on the bottom of the chord, we got this little kind of tritone power chord, right? And when we're playing this shape of the A dominant 7th chord, we're missing the 5th. This E right here. Or in this position, I guess you would kind of add it down here. I don't really use it up there that much, but if we add that E, whether here or here, to our kind of tritone power chord thing, we get a diminished arpeggio. You probably know diminished arpeggios from that kind of more neoclassical kind of a thing. But getting back to this diminished power chord thing, this is the exact chord we had before. This is still our A dominant 7th. It's the exact same chord, we're just not playing the A. But again, what that means is that you can replace your A dominant 7th chord with a C sharp diminished chord. Or you could play perhaps a C sharp dominant 7 flat 5, aka C sharp half diminished. Or even a fully diminished. It's just a little bit more spicy. Because when you play half diminished, you're adding this little B down here, which is the ninth of A. While the fully diminished chord has the flat ninth, which is not necessarily a bad sound, but it's probably not your first choice with the blues. But again, you can do whatever you want. We can again substitute the A dominant 7th chord for that C sharp half diminished chord. That's something I do a lot. And perhaps we can do it when we leave the D dominant 7th chord to go back to the A. Kind of like this. And again, it works out kind of okay. The thing about doing these chord substitutions is that you really need to know the sound of those chords. For instance, half diminished chords don't really sound as unresolved as the fully diminished chords, but they are still some pretty tense chords, and adding this tension to your blues may or may not be something you wish for. And again, if you know a little bit about diminished chords, whether it's from your neoclassical things or even from more of the jazzier sort of stuff, and you have some sort of diminished chord, you can do a really cool thing, which is to move your diminished stuff by minor thirds, aka a tone and a half in this case. So you could perhaps do. And again, as mentioned before, since all of your chords in the blues are dominant 7th chords, you can also substitute your other dominant 7th chords for their respective diminished chord. This is a half diminished chord or minor 7 flat 5 chord, for instance if we were to replace a D. Again, in the context of the blues. Or if you wanted to do the fully diminished chords. And also in the E7th. Again, I could be talking about this for hours, because there are so many things you can change, and I guess if you guys really want to, I can do a part 2 on this, but I'll end the video with just another one. I think this video is already really long by now. If you know a little bit about jazz, or you've heard a little bit about jazz, or even seen some videos, you've probably seen or heard or played the 2-5-1, which is if you're in C major, if you know the chords of C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. You know you have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, then we resolve it again to C major. So the 2-5-1 in C major is exactly playing the 2 chord of C major, which would be D minor, and the 5 chord, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G, G major, and then resolving back to C. And you're probably thinking by now, wasn't this a blues? Why are we talking about jazz now? Well, the thing about the 2-5-1 is that it's just a bunch of cadences. You probably hear that when you go from A to D, there's a really good resolution. Or when you go from E to A, there's also a cool resolution. There's also a resolution when you go from D to A, but it's not as strong as going from E to A. This is what we call a 5-to-1 resolution. Again, the 5 of A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is E, so 5-to-1. Even if you think about the resolution from D to G on the 2-5-1, if we do the C major scale where we start in G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 of G is D, so we're going from 5-to-1 and 5-to-1. And we can also use this in the blues. If we think about going from A to D, we are already going from 5-to-1. But we could perhaps add the 2 chord to it. Since we're in the blues, I wouldn't really tell you to think about this much theoretically. When you want to find a 2 chord of any one of these chords, just go 2 frets up and play a dominant 7th chord. So if we wanted to go to D, we have to go for the 2 chord, which would be again a tone up, E7, A7, D7. It's a pretty straight up business, really. I could perhaps play it like, I don't know, like this. In case you couldn't figure it out, I kept playing the A7th. Then I went to E, which is a 2 of D, to the 5, which is A, and then resolved it to D. And then I did the exact same thing, but going to the A. So the chord I wanted to go to was A. So the 2 chord, 1, 2, would be dominant 7th, E, then to the A. So I went. And before we go to the outro, I just want to say that I showed you many ways to revamp your blues. But you don't really need to do one at a time. You can combine some of them. For instance, the one we just looked at now, the 2-5-1. When you're going from A to D and you want to do the 2-5-1, and you find out that the 2 of D is an E dominant 7th that we use to go to the 5 chord, that we use to go to the 1 chord, right? But don't forget, this is a dominant 7th chord, so you could do a tritone substitution on the E, and do tritone substitution on the 2, 5, 1. Kinda like this. Or for instance, we talked about substituting a dominant 7th chord with a half diminished chord, with the root being the third of our original dominant 7th chord, right? You could also do that, for instance, when we do a tritone substitution. Let's say that we want to do a tritone substitution when we go from that little turnaround. We do a tritone substitution from E and it becomes an A sharp, right? We could also turn that A sharp into a D half diminished chord. Kind of like... And again, sorry if this video turns out a little bit weird. I'm re-recording this, I need to do it real fast, and this last part may have become a little bit more confusing, because we got progressively harder and faster, I guess. But I guess I'll just do a little vamp on the 12-bar blues and I'll add some substitutions along the way, and you can slow the video down on YouTube and figure it out a little bit by yourself. I'll just use substitutions that I showed you, or that little trick of sliding to the chord you're going to from a fret below. So yeah, let's do it and then let's get to the outro. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible. And if it was, please leave a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something you should have said? Do you have any suggestions for videos? Again, this is your series. If you want to keep this rolling, and if you want to get a shout out, the comment section is for you. And as always, I'm giving away free one-on-one Skype lessons. And anyone can enter, but they are limited though, so you gotta be fast. And all you have to do to win one free Skype lesson and discounts on future lessons is to subscribe to my channel, turn on all the notifications, follow me on Instagram, and then DM me either on Instagram or one of my other social medias, again links below, with screenshots, proving that you did everything mentioned before. And yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow me on social media, perhaps apply for those Skype lesson thingies. Don't forget to check out some of my other videos. Again, they'll be in the card section right there, on the description below, on the annotations of the end screen, which will be on in just a couple of seconds, so please stay tuned. And yeah, I guess that's all. Cheers!